Welcome to The Straight Edge, the podcast where we cut through the noise to build a stronger community. I'm Bill, your host, and together with my wife Denise, we'll be diving into conversations that matter.
We're here to share stories, explore different perspectives, and have some fun along the way. From local stories to broader topics, we've got it all covered.
So, if you're looking for genuine conversations and a sense of community, you're in the right place.
Join us as we embark on this journey together.
This is The Straight Edge. Let's get started. Hey, what's up, you savages? Welcome back to The Straight Edge, the podcast where we keep it real and straight from the barbershop.
Today we've got a fun guest in the shop, our friend and neighbor, Adam Crowe. He just published his first children's book called Henry Sinclair and the Dreamwriters.
It's a wild fantasy adventure about a kid who learns how to step into dreams. And let's just say, things get creative really fast. Marshmallow worlds, twisted villains, and yeah, his 6-year-old had a lot to do with it.
We talk about the process, the inspiration, and what he did to bring the whole thing to life. Plus, what's next for the series.
You'll hear the usual background buzz, clippers, and that barbershop hum. But that's just how we do it here.
So sit back and enjoy the conversation and ride the dream. Here's our talk with Adam.
Let's get into it. Talk with Adam today. You recently put out a book, and it's a children's book, correct? And
That is correct.
the title?
Henry Sinclair and the Dreamwriters. It is about an 11-year-old boy named Henry. It's a fantasy adventure story. He discovers his grandmother found a way to go into people's dreams. So it's his
cool.
adventure.
So going into people's dreams. And what, is he like in a fantasy world kind of thing, or is it?
Yeah, it's 100% the fantasy world idea. It sounds initially like Nightmare on Elm Street. That sounds like a terrible description, but my son, before I wrote it, suggested what would it be like to live in a world made of marshmallows. So one of the dream worlds, for example, is he goes into a world made entirely out of marshmallows. So it sounded like a fun adventure to me.
So did Coop come up with some of those inspirations?
Yeah, see, Coop is the main source of the random question of like, what about this? And turns out when you go into a fantasy world, pretty good idea for a 6-year-old to come up with most of the ideas.
Yeah, no kidding.
And Coop is definitely got the imagination too.
There's nothing like being a 6-year-old where the entire world is a playground, where everything can be an adventure ship or what did he tell me the other day? It wasn't cops and robbers. It was something equally as strange, though, like aliens and space invaders. But again, it's great to tap into when you're trying to come up with books for kids when you got one that's just got an imagination like that.
So are you giving him royalties on this, or?
Well, he gets 3 meals a day, maybe he goes to college later for sure. But he is definitely in the forward as a thank you, as well as a couple of my other kids and family friends, that sort of thing.
Well, when he was in the shop yesterday or the day before, he was promoting the book.
I know. He goes around, he tells everybody now. He's like, my dad wrote a book. And I'm like, that person's 80 years old, son. They're not going to read that book. But it is nice to have built-in promoters in the family for sure.
Now, is it available like in a hard copy, or is it primarily like online download thing?
I actually discovered this the other day for the first time. There's an ebook, there's a paperback copy, and a hard copy, all available from the publisher, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. I found a Korean online bookstore that was selling it. Pretty much anywhere you can buy books, it's available, so which is good. Other than you can't go into bookstores, but you can certainly buy it online.
In all versions, right? You can get the electronic, you can get a paperback, and you can get a hard copy, huh?
Yes, and everyone should get one of each of those just to make sure they pick their variety of choice. But yeah, it's available in all forms, pretty much at every site. All about the same price, too, which is nice because it's pretty much pick your place you want to get it, and it's there.
Would that be like what, Amazon, I assume, and others?
Yeah. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Thrift Books, Walmart. I know for sure they all have it. But it's always nice. I typically go to Amazon myself because they have the bookseller rankings. So I tend to look at it and see if my book's up or down on the list. It's certainly not number one, but we like to see it climb, with more and more purchases.
And you had your little setup at the neighborhood event, too, did you not? How did that go for you?
Yeah, so we did one in the local neighborhood at the vendor fair. It was great. I mean, it's nice to have people come over and ask you the simple question of what is this? One, who are you? And then what is this? And we've got so many kids in the neighborhood of different ages. People are willing to give it a shot. And it's just at a nice price point where people are willing to take a chance. Hopefully it's something good they can give to family or friends or nieces or nephews or whatever.
Yeah, I just bought one for my grandson. I'm going to be giving it to him as a gift.
I mean, that's what I'm hoping for, these gifts. I'm not expecting to retire off of this, but, just to have some good fun, maybe give kids an opportunity to have an adventure story and, get out of video games or whatever. Not that those are bad, just give them an opportunity to go into their own imaginations.
Did you have any hard copies there at the thing did you sign for people, or?
I did, yeah. We had a couple of copies. I think we ended up selling 10 in a couple hours, which isn't a tremendous amount, but considering who came and what they were looking for, I mean, it's hard to get people to pull over, when they've got a jewelry stand next to you or T-shirts or whatever, but when they're looking for that kind of stuff, they were there. Had copies, signed some, didn't sign others. I tend to like to say, ride the dreams and then sign it. So far, that's my go-to sign anyway.
Gotcha. So is Coop giving you ideas for the next, is this going to be a series or sequel to this?
Yeah, so it's Henry Sinclair and something. So this first one's Henry Sinclair and the Dream Riders. The next one will be Henry Sinclair and the T-shirt of Destiny, which is about being a superhero. Coop has book 4 completely slotted out. He keeps coming back, asking me if I'm done, and I'm just like, slow down. We haven't gotten through number 2 yet. But yeah, he told me one day, we were looking at, I think we saw a lizard at the playground, and we talked about a lizard wizard. So that will be one of the core characters of the 4th book, is a lizard wizard. Again, go take your inspiration wherever you get it.
No, that's. I mean, it's amazing, especially in a day and age too, where we can just create like that, and you have so many tools at your disposal as well to create, and then just taking the imagination of a young boy and just turning it into putting something down on paper or per se, putting it in print.
It's interesting you ask about the creation piece, because we also have, I think it's 30 images, 30 pictures in the book that are all AI generated. We use the tools that are out there, and very much like the mind of a 6-year-old, threw out a prompt and it came up with a couple of different things, a couple of different variety. And that's one thing people have been surprised at, is how good the pictures match the text on the paper as far as what they're quote unquote seeing. And so that was really nice to be able to use that as a emerging technology, if you will. And not only the words, but give them a little bit of imagery to go with it. So that was kind of a neat piece.
No, it's amazing what AI can do nowadays. So I'm using it for a project of mine too.
Look, I mean, clearly AI is the way it's going, although it's interesting in the publishing world, there is still a lot of pushback on how AI is used and whether it's ethical might be too strong of a word, but that idea of, is it original enough? Are you the source of it enough? But in a lot of ways, I think it's the toothpaste is out of the tube on AI. I mean, it's going to be a matter of how we use it, not if we use it, and in what forms and versions and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's pretty exciting stuff. And I don't know that the next one will use it, because I've ended up finding a friend who he wants to get into illustrations. And so it was a partnership that at least we're working on now, that he will hand draw the pictures of superheroes, which that's the next book. But then, yeah, I imagine AI will be there every time if needed.
Right, and I know people who aren't familiar with AI though too. I mean, you got to kind of know what you're doing with it to get the results you want. Yeah. I mean, when I use mine, I'll back and forth with it numerous times. I'll give it one description, and it won't be exactly what I want. You got to refine it, and it's very literal too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right that knowing the prompts, there was AI image generation is notoriously bad with hands, for example. And so there's a scene where they are swimming around in a pool of marshmallows, back to that example. And I wanted a hand sticking out of the marshmallows like they were swimming or struggling or whatever. And every single time I would do it, I'd get 6 fingers. And I kept telling him, like, give me a hand with 5 fingers, give me 6. And then I tried, give me 7, it would give me 6. It was like somehow AI only wanted to give a hand with 6 fingers. But even in a dream world, 6 fingers doesn't look right. So you definitely have to keep working at the prompts and get it and give feedback, and eventually it works out.
Well, they do say that's one of the things that you can see if an image is AI generated, is look at the hands typically, or look, there's definitely telltale signs looking for AI generated images.
The interesting part too was obviously AI is good at doing photorealistic stuff. I was trying to find that balance of slightly cartoonish, but not full. Yeah. So it looked like, real enough, but not so much that it was like, oh, that's Cousin Jimmy or that's my neighbor or whatever. It was purely something they could fill in the blank. It was also a black and white book in my sense, so there's no color copies in that vein. So, again, hopefully kids especially can use their imagination to fill in whatever features and textures they see when they close their eyes and they read about Henry Sinclair or his friends or his grandmother or whoever.
So is this something like you said it's targeted like around 10 or 11-year-olds kind of thing?
Yeah, I think it's that the kind of middle elementary school up through early middle school. So, probably 10 to, well, maybe 9 to 12, somewhere in there, depending on if they're a really early reader, maybe earlier than that. But there's nothing in the book that would be too scary for someone, for a kid that age. But it's also not so mature that, once kids get to a certain age, they might still like it, but it's definitely in that. I've told people the sort of the Magic Treehouse storyline where kids take an adventure and they get to do whatever and they come back and in the end everybody's safe and nobody's lost in the end. It should just be a fun adventure story that they get to experience for a few minutes to escape whatever they're doing. Maybe it's boredom, maybe it's a rough time, whatever. That's the goal of writing that kind of book to me.
And this is something you could probably read like in a couple hours or so, or?
Yeah, usually it seems like the kids who have picked it up have blown right through it in a couple of hours. It's only 120 pages in print, and it's, I think relatively small size too, so it should go pretty fast. Got 18, 20 chapters, but again, they're a couple pages a piece, should be quick and easy. Anybody who can read, who's past the picture books, they're into chapter books, easy, perfect fit for them.
Gotcha. So it's not like a complicated read, it's a fairly simple read and something that should, in today's day and age, where they're easily distracted, they can get through fairly quickly.
Yeah, once you can accept the fact that you've ridden a magic train into a dreamland, once you get over that hurdle, then the rest is easy. It's a straightforward story. There is a clear bad guy, if you will, and there are times that are stressful to the characters. But in the end, as you would hope, everything turns out good. Everybody has some resolution. The bad guy loses. I'm not giving it away. Like, that's the kind of book we're looking at, especially if parents are listening to this. You want to give kids a good experience that they can get positive reinforcement from their ethics and morality and that sort of thing. So
you have others in the pipeline. When do you anticipate your next release?
Ideally, I'd submit the next book draft this summer. So, I'm hoping by middle of 2025 it's in. And then depending on the publisher's schedule and assuming that they accept the new version and all that, ideally be out by Christmas, somewhere in there. Yeah, that'd be ideal. But that is very dependent on the publisher, and I have almost zero say over that. If not, it'll be early 26, and then hopefully about every 6 months or so they can pump one out. Because while it does take time to write them, they're short enough and straightforward enough, and they've been outlined now because of my 6-year-old's imagination. I will say, too, right now they're Henry Sinclair, who there's 3 books slotted for him. There's a transition book, and then there'll be a female protagonist at that point who takes over and has similar stories, similar adventure stories. I'm hoping to kind of reach a different set of audiences. My daughter was very upset that there wasn't a female character, so it sort of drove that idea of like, okay, let's make sure we can cover those kind of bases and give boys and girls and, whatever they want to read, give a cool adventure. And it'll all be kind of in the same fantasy universe in this regard.
Well, I love the idea. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, what was so where did Henry St. Clair come from? The motivation behind him.
I can't give away all the secrets, Bill. I actually don't know, to be honest with you. I was looking at names, and I think I've always been a big Harry Potter fan, sort of that rhythm of simple first name, simple last name. I think I closed my eyes, and that's what popped into mind, and it sounded good to me in my mind. I did come to find out, though, that Henry Sinclair is actually like a 13th or 14th century knight, I believe, with the Knights Templar. My mother pointed it out on Amazon. She was looking for my book, and up popped this book that was like Henry Sinclair and the Knights Templar or medieval something or other. And she was upset that somebody else was using my character. And I'm like, no, I think that's a real person. That just is a historical book. So, yeah, I don't know where it came from other than that. That's pretty much I need a better story on that version, but it just closed my eyes and it came to me.
Well, I can vouch for some of the ideas I've had for things. It is extremely hard to come up with like an original name or something completely original that's like you don't Google it and like,
I will say that the bad guy in the story, I looked it up because I wanted a name that would have some secondary meaning. I won't give away the character's name, but it comes from another language than English, and it means twisted. And so I thought that was sort of a cool underlying thing, that the name itself sounded common enough to be a name, but actually had some underlying bad guy sound to it, if you will. So that was sort of that intention. Yeah. It's cool.
Well, that's always like one thing, like I kind of always try to look into, like as far as like when I read or like you're looking for those I don't want to say hidden meanings, but like there's depth to it kind of thing.
Oh yeah, Easter eggs are definitely the way to go with all this stuff. And I had a neighbor friend read it, and he came to the bus stop the other day and asked me specifically about a certain section of the book because he was reading it with his kids and wanted to know if it had come from Back to the Future. And I was like, yes, there is a line in the very opening chapter that is, or no, I guess the second chapter that's basically word for word from Back to the Future, just because it's one of those inspirations, for me growing up, that kind of adventure story. I told somebody that, my books, I think, will end up being like kind of a love note to all those movies and stories I read as a kid that were imaginative and took you to a whole new universe, whether it was in time or it was in space or, whatever. So that's the goal for sure.
Yeah, that's, of course, us, Gen X people, right? So all those great 80s movies and stuff like that. Like, now I'll drop those pop culture references now and again to people. Then you get, like, the younger, they look at you like, what? Like, oh my gosh, I feel so old now.
We were playing games this past weekend, and my son's girlfriend said something about, it was a game that required roads. And as soon as she said roads, in my head, all I could see was Doc Brown from Back to the Future of like, roads. Where we're going, we don't need roads. And I said it just like that, with the sort of the look on her face. It's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, whatever. You'll learn one day. Maybe.
Look at you like you're weird, You guys have been coming, well, since you moved here pretty much, right? So we do want to thank you for that. You have been a great advocate for us, you and Jenny. Like anytime something pops up in like Facebook page or something like that, like, hey, anybody know a barber? Here's where you go. I know, we appreciate it immensely. Thanks. And this, like, to help you promote your book too,
We appreciate the Brovado shop for sure. You guys have been great neighbors and obviously business owners in the community. And it's a nice little corner tucked in here. And you guys have a nice little vibe. Do a good job. Denise is the best.
Thank you.
I never leave here. Matter of fact, I'll tell a quick aside on that. I had a haircut, changed up the look that I'd had for a decade or more, put it in Denise's hands, went back to my office, and the first person who saw me was like, your hair looks fantastic. And
That says it
it
all,
was,
right?
I mean, it really was, right? It was nice personal validation, but it was also, I think, a reflection of the quality of the styling and the haircut. So it was a great job here.
Good to hear.
Looking forward to where you guys end up in the next couple of years.
Well, like we've made it no secret. Our plan is to hopefully end up in Nunley Village. 2027 is when they're planning on that, at corner of Otterdale and Hull Street there across from Publix and Wawa. It'll be very convenient for all of us involved.
That whole area is booming for sure. It'll be great. I think you guys will, y'all are doing the business side of it, but I can't imagine your business side done boom moving there where you have greater visibility or new space. Keep it fresh. But I'm just excited that you guys have had such creative ideas with how to use the space for this community connection piece of it, not just being coming to get a haircut, but having an enjoyable time and being a part of the community and sharing knowledge. I learn more stuff about what's going on in the community here than anywhere else.
And that's what a barbershop should be.
That's what we try to be. We try to be a finger on the pulse kind of thing and give back. I was raised that way, to always give back to your community. My parents were always actively involved in our community. And that's just what I know.
I will say the fun part, though, is y'all typically are conduits for it. You don't often, I think Denise and I have talked about that a couple of times. I sit there and listen while I'm waiting to get in the chair, and somebody's just babbling on about something very, very committed, and Denise is just quietly nodding or, giving the affirmations, but never particularly giving your opinion necessarily. I think that that just lets the community kind of flow in and out of your chair. They can be on this side or that side of an opinion, and that's great.
Well, that's what we strive for. I mean, it's community, right? When it all comes down to it, especially with the national stage, we just want to be more focused on the local and the community and talk about the things that we all agree on rather than 10 to 20 that we don't agree on, which really is irrelevant in my opinion, in the sense like we're all here as a community. We all are here to support one another irregardless. You know what I mean?
I think that's the way you got to do it. And it's just unique, though. I mean, especially this time of day, is to find a place that can manage that effectively. So kudos to you guys.
Thank you very much.
We appreciate it.
All right, that's a wrap on today's episode. Big thanks to Adam for stopping by and giving us a peek behind the curtain of Henry Sinclair and the Dream Riders.
It's not every day you see someone take their kid's imagination and turn it into a full-blown book, but that's what it's all about: creativity, family, and following through.
And if you've got young readers at home, or you just want to support someone in the community doing something cool, pick up a copy. You can find it online just about anywhere.
And if you're one of our customers with a story to tell, don't wait for an invite. Hit us up. You never know. You might be the next guest in the chair.
And as always, we appreciate you listening and being part of the Shop family.
And until next time, stay sharp, stay engaged, stay bold, and keep pushing forward.
And we'll catch you on the next episode of The Straight Edge.